I am happy to be at the Oak Park Brewing Company in the patio area with Jessica Allercon. I have had the pleasure of meeting and knowing Jessica for how long now?
About a year.
A year? Yeah, a year. Awesome woman, awesome mother, wife. Works for the state of California like I used to. I'm a retired annuitant. Yeah. Actually work in the same building, and that's pretty cool. 4 kids, husband, and you live here in Oak Park.
Yes, I do.
What drew you to Oak Park? Why? How did the Alarcon family make it to Oak Park?
How did we make it to Oak Park? Well, Izzy and I after we got married, we were renting across Fifth Avenue in Curtis Park, and knew like 1,000 real estate agents who were like, buy a house, buy a house, buy a house. And we started looking around. We wanted to stay in the central city. We're not interested in moving out to the suburbs. And
lawns and pink flamingos don't do it for you, huh?
No. I wanted to live somewhere that felt like being somewhere. Izzy grew up in a small town. He grew up in Winters, out by Davis, in this teeny tiny little town.
I know exactly where it is.
All self-contained. And I grew up in the country, which is a different thing. But, when you went somewhere, you were in a place. I spent college in the suburbs in LA County, and it was a nightmare. Actually, in grad school, I got sick of it and moved to Long Beach so that I could live somewhere that wasn't, just streets and streets and streets of houses that looked the same, and didn't feel like you were ever anywhere where there was any kind of community that could be fostered or function. And I think, both of us growing up in rural areas, and, in Long Beach I found a community, and it felt like, I could walk through the neighborhood and know the people that I saw on the streets. And that doesn't happen in the suburbs or anywhere. So we were looking for that when we started looking for a house.
Yeah.
And we're looking at neighborhoods that we can afford in Sacramento. And where we were living in Curtis Park was really nice. And we were certainly open to finding something there, but it felt very homogenous still in the middle of the city. And we had friends who lived over on First Avenue, actually just 2 blocks from our house. We knew like 3 or 4 families that all lived in a row, and we had spent a lot of time with them in that area. And the more we looked around at Tahoe Park and other places, it just felt like this area over here, kind of First, Second, Third Avenue, between the Med Center and Broadway, felt like a place we wanted to be and we wanted to live. And, it wasn't as well developed as it is now, but it just...
What year did you move in?
We moved in 2008.
2008. This is 2019. That's
yes,
11 years. You have seen...
So we've seen a lot of transformation in the neighborhood.
Yes. I can probably take you one up.
I'm sure you can.
Well, I moved here with my parents, or my parents brought the family here from Bakersfield in, I think it was the fall of 1967.
Okay.
And lived on the corner of 33rd Street and 6th Avenue over by the Rainbow Bakery. Now Bimbo Bakery. Walked over the bridge to Bret Hart for 4th and 5th grade. Walked through McClatchy Park at the time when there was I think it was Ben Franklin that was on 1 block from here. I guess that'd be 35th Street when they would sell all types of things. I bought model airplanes, and so it was community for me. Mm-hmm. And even though we were here in Oak Park for only 2 years, this really made a huge impression on me and my life, and so I can totally relate to what you're saying about Oak Park having a sense of community. So in the 11 years that you've been here,
yes,
what have you? Give me a feeling of what did you experience? It had to be like a tidal wave or time warp or what?
I wouldn't call it that. It was. I think the changes that have come to the neighborhood have come gradually. I probably would have thought twice about walking here by myself, in
11 years ago.
Yes, 11 years ago. And there was nothing here. There was the Starbucks to walk to, but I probably would have reconsidered that. There was definitely a lot more crime, a lot more several houses down on my street where the police were regular visitors. The 39th Street alley was not somewhere you walked up at night or anything. There was definitely a lot going down there. And I think the change, for a long time, it felt slow and incremental. I think in the last few years, obviously, the redevelopment has exploded and the housing prices went from, we bought toward the beginning of when the housing market went down, so we watched that kind of bottom out and change, as people came where there wasn't a lot of change until the market started going back up and it started being a place that people could afford again. And
what would you, for someone who's not familiar with Oak Park?
Yes.
I don't know, word association. Give me 3 adjectives. The top 3 adjectives you would use to describe Oak Park.
Now? I don't even know. It feels, in a way, it feels like a contained neighborhood, but
community?
I think there's a sense of community, and that's, I think it's kind of ebbed and flowed. It's been a rough couple years for the community as people have dealt with the changes, and, it was always diverse. That was one thing we appreciated about the neighborhood.
Racially, culturally,
socially. I mean, there aren't a lot of people with money here, but otherwise, cultural, there are lots of different cultures around, racially very diverse. And we look around, my street, less and less so, but predominantly African American when I moved in. The next street over is very, very Asian. Most of the neighbors over the fence are Hmong. I think the new family behind us is Mongolian. Tons of Pakistani families. It just seemed really interesting that all these people are living together in this place. And one of the things it's been, people mix more here than they do in other neighborhoods. I mean, certainly, there's a lot of concern over the fact that people who've lived here a long time and rent, especially if they were renters, can no longer afford it. Rents have gone insane. And
I don't think, I'm not going out on a limb, I don't think that is particular to Oak Park.
No, it's not particular to Oak Park. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's all of them. I think there's been a lot of, as the housing market in Sacramento has changed, it's become uncomfortable here as people are looking askance at, especially anybody who's new or perceived to be, not the people who belonged here.
So how do you as an individual, as a professional, wife,
yes,
mother, homeowner, how do you maintain or look to maintain community in something that's rapidly changing?
That's a good question, and I don't know. It's been something I've been thinking about. You've met Izzy. He's the friendliest person ever, so he knows, and he's home all day.
I would agree.
So, it's been interesting We've known the neighbors when we first moved in, and we had a Bible study at our house. We hosted barbecues for the street where people, come here, here's some food. Let's get to know you. Who are you? And that seems to be harder to engage with the neighbors.
Why?
I don't know. It's also, for us, things have changed, when we moved in and we didn't have any kids to now having 4 of them. And, Izzy's got all 4 of them right now. As I left to come here, he came to pick up the little ones, to go pick up the big ones at jiu-jitsu, to take Theo to soccer practice. And, I think for us, it's been hard to, how do we stay engaged when, we've got a lot going on. I think, it's been difficult to figure out how to build and maintain community.
You mentioned at one point one thing that I have found in my many years of life is that things just don't happen.
No,
at
they
least
don't.
Positive things.
No, they don't.
You have to be intentional, and I think you became every person when you describe life. Well, I'm picking up kids to go pick up other kids because I've got classes, I've got soccer, I've got sports, I've got all of these things going on. And oh, by the way, I'm supposed to engage, interact, and love my neighbor as myself.
Yes.
Maybe not today. I don't know. I don't know. That's tough. How do you balance that? How do you balance that?
I don't know.
You're doing it now, right?
Balancing it is hard. We're trying. I think we've. I've been trying to do it more recently, but my kids prefer the front yard. But being out where we can see people. We've formed relationships with a lot of our neighbors just by being in the front yard and talking to the people who walk by. I think our newer neighbors spend less time outside. I mean, our neighbors who've been around for a long time pretty much live on the front porches, and so it's been, we can maintain and form some kind of relationship with them and be intentional about that, Who are you, what's going on? And we've got a good little 4 or 5 neighbors that, we speak to often and know kind of what's going on with them.
So where do you see, put your Nostradamus cap on, where do you see Oak Park going?
I don't know.
There's a development that's planned, going to mess up the street. I think it's 34th and Broadway. Another huge housing development.
Oh, they're gonna, where that empty lot is?
Yeah.
Oh, sad day. They were gonna put a market there at one point.
Yeah, I'd heard that also, but it's my understanding, I could be completely off base, it's my understanding that it's going to be housing.
Housing? Okay.
Yeah. We need housing.
Yes.
But I suspect that whatever is built is going to be beyond the reach of a lot of folks. But again, that's not an Oak Park problem.
No,
that's
it's not.
That's a California problem.
Yes.
But again, do we just shrug our shoulders, throw up our hands, and say, well, that's just the way it is, and just keep moving? What do we do?
I don't know. I think the problem with, I think the question is, it's a structural problem that's probably beyond a few people to address, because where are the jobs that pay the wages that allow people to live in any kind of home in California anymore? I don't know.
So now you sought Oak Park out. You mentioned you sought it out because of its diversity, because of its sense of community, because of its, for lack of a better word, contained nature of Oak Park. Great reasons. You're raising wonderful children now, but they're not necessarily going to experience what you experienced. They're going to what you left in Curtis Park. You said the homogeneity of the community. That looks like that's where we're going. Not necessarily on racial or cultural homogeneity. It's more economic. And that brings with it its own set of issues.
Yes.
So what are you doing? What are you and Izzy doing in terms of making sure that your children are have a broad focus, have a community focus, have a concern for others?
My kids, oh gosh, I'm a proud mama. My kids are so far the older ones. It's been harder this summer, but there are lots of things going on from the farmer's market that the kids have been to until the last couple months, every Saturday for their entire lives. And going to the community events. One thing I'm sad about, and I missed it last week, where we were worshiping at Sac Friends, they did a meal at one of the shelters once every other month, and Phoebe and more recently Ezra have gone with me, and my kids pay attention to what's going on around. My older ones have often, Phoebe's always coming up with ways that she thinks that maybe we can help people. They're aware of the problem of homelessness, and what can we do? How can we help? I think making sure that we're engaging with everybody that lives here, and that we're a part of the community. It's been, I don't think we've ever taken them to the neighborhood association or whatever, but when there are things to do and be involved with in the community, we've generally brought our kids with us. If we're engaged, if we're doing something there, they've been with us because we don't have anything else to do with them. And because I want them to see that and be involved with that.
How much time, you mentioned about being out in the front yard intentionally. Do you limit the amount of, for lack of a better word, iPad, phone time, TV time, or is...
We try very hard. My mother-in-law has supplied every child with their own tablet. She just gave Phoebe a phone for her birthday.
And Phoebe is how old?
She's 10.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's a flip phone. It's a dumb phone because I was pretty adamant that she not have access to the internet. Yeah. But oh my gosh, the amount of energy they put into finding where we've hidden these things, accessing them, it's amazing. I don't want them, zoning out in front of a screen.
Yeah.
This is still Oak Park, and so we want them to go outside, and they certainly run around out on the street, sometimes also more than, where have they gone?
Where did they go? Yeah, yeah. Little too rambunctious, maybe.
Well, I think one of the downsides of raising our children, that they go where we go, and we're in the community, and they show up at the Oak Park Farmers Market and they feel like they own the place because they've been going since they were babies, and so they'll just disappear. And it's not always easy to find them. At least once when he was tiny, Ezra wandered off with some poor people. I think they were from UC Davis teaching about health or whatever, and he somehow convinced someone to go over there and play with me. And nobody thought that was a bad idea, and I had no idea where my kid was for 10 minutes. I've lost him at Gather at least twice.
Oh, wow.
So yes, they felt confident that this is our community and we belong here, wherever everybody is.
Yeah. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do tomorrow, next week, next month, next year as a resident in Oak Park? What are your intentional plans to foster, broaden, strengthen community. What are the Alarcons gonna do? Keep going to the farmers market. Keep playing out in the front yard.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think there are a lot of good things. I mean, there's a lot of good going on. Much like the laundry thing, I think it's a different weekend. They have the Oak Park Fix-It Cafe that sounds really interesting, and I always keep wishing that there was some way I could find a way to go and
Laundry Love every fourth Saturday.
I think the Fix-It Cafe.
The Fix-It Cafe.
Are they on the third Saturday?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Right there at the Methodist Church.
Right there.
Right there. Yeah.
It's been one of the things that's been hard about being here is that who is not moving here is families. And it's not affordable. I mean, even for us, we keep dreaming that maybe someday we'll be able to make our house bigger or something, but we've got 6 people and 1,300 square feet, and that's rough. And we certainly can't afford to buy a house that would feel more comfortable for our family in the neighborhood. But, trying to find a way, it's hard to encourage our kids to be engaged in the neighborhood when there's nobody for them to engage with. Our neighbors' grandkids, when they show up from time to time. And
it's interesting. Do you want to go down that rabbit trail? It's interesting. You mentioned 1,300 square feet.
Yes.
For 6 kids. One of my seminary professors caused us, Hebrew teacher as a matter of fact, he said, reflect on the size of the closets of homes that were built in the 20s and the 30s.
Like my house.
Very small.
So small.
Very small closets. Why? Because that's all you needed. You just needed a small closet. You had a chest of drawers, and that was it. Mm-hmm. But in terms of fast forward to the 21st century, we now turn bedrooms into closets. And we're proud of ourselves. We're proud of ourselves for doing that, and it's a reflection. I won't say it's the canary in the coal mine, but it is at least a reflection of priority. And we need the feeling that we need bigger or more. In Bakersfield, the house we left was a very humble house, and we had a room for my one sister, and there was a room for 8 boys. And my parents had a room. And so we never felt like we didn't have anything.
Yes.
But I can look at my pictures now as when I was growing up, and it's like, oh, well, those were obvious handed down clothes that were cuffed and patched, and we wouldn't dare let our kids wear those things now, but I had everything I needed and more. And now here we are.
Yeah.
In October 2019.
Yes. It would be nice to have a way to get away from people sometimes in our house. Actually, that's really what we want.
That's why you walked here, and you and make sure you're the time away a little bit more.
A little bit more. No. No, we have. I think it's interesting in this day and age to try and teach my children, and definitely keeping them away from TV helps, because when they start watching commercials, it all goes south pretty fast. We have a lot. We have more than we need.
Yeah.
They've kind of been trained to pray every morning and be grateful that we have more than we need.
Yeah.
They've heard me say it enough that they're like, oh yes, we're supposed to be thankful that we have more.
Well, I think we should wrap up our time, but if every head of household in Oak Park had Izzy and Jessica Allercon as a head of household, I think Oak Park would be in a much better place. Not to say anything about any other household, but I know Jessica, I know Izzy, I know Phoebe, Ezra, Theo, and Eve. And it's an incredible family, and I am honored to be in association with you and your family, And I just want to thank you for your time today here at the Oak Park Brewing Company. Thank you.
Thank you.